We're just on the brink of beginning the Mass of the Lord's Supper this evening, and I thought we could just take a few minutes before we meditate to reflect upon the religious aspect of our time of retreat, which begins, well, I suppose it began on Sunday with the Palm Sunday Mass. But we enter into these religious rituals of Easter this evening with the Mass of the Lord's Supper. Balancing the religious and the spiritual is something of a challenge and maybe an opportunity for us to go further in our time. Many people, of course, would think of themselves as spiritual, wouldn't be embarrassed to say that they are seeking a spirituality or a spiritual path, but at the same time would feel a reserve or a resistance or even a kind of opposition or antipathy towards the religious. And I'm not sure that that is a true polarization or a good polarization, either for us as individuals or as a culture. So I'd just like to reflect a little before we begin these great rituals of the Triduum, to reflect upon this distinction between the spiritual and the religious. Perhaps we should begin by saying, or reminding ourselves of what Karl Rahner, the great Jesuit theologian, said in the last century, that the Christian of the future will be mystical, or there will be no Christians. Christianity depends for its flourishing, for its, in a sense, for its survival, on recovering a full appreciation of the spiritual at its deepest level. So I think as soon as we begin to practice a contemplative discipline, we try to make meditation part of our life, morning and evening, for example, we begin, I think, to look on the religious aspect with different eyes. And that it can be a great gift to us. We can then begin to see the meaning and the value, the purpose, the usefulness of these religious rituals and symbols. And we begin to understand why the word religion literally means to relink. Religere, to relink. What does it relink us to? I think you could say that it relinks the interior to the external. And in a sense, these are arbitrary distinctions we make, what is within us and what is outside of us, and yet these are terms that make sense to us. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus actually says that the goal is to make the inner and the outer one. And I think one of the things we discover through meditation is a harmonizing of the interior and the external aspects of our lives. And with that comes often a great healing and some wisdom and some greater peace of mind as we realize that the interior life, our feelings and the mystery of our own interior self can be harmonized with the external circumstances of our lives. We might say, I think, that the spiritual is a personal experience of the mystery, of the numinous. Numinous is a term that has become popular to describe that quality of experience of birth or death, life, love, separation, loss, discovery, union, all of the varied, wonderful, joyful, and painful experiences of life. The numinous is that sense of the depth dimension within these experiences. And also that these experiences of life connect us to the purpose and the meaning of our life's journey. That, in other words, these experiences of our relationships, of our life, the accidents of our life as well, are all connected to a larger meaning. And that as we become aware of this larger meaning, we are able to integrate them, and the journey of life itself begins to expand and connect us more widely to others. I think we see this, for example, in the case of suffering. At a certain point in our development, we may think of suffering merely as individual. It's just my suffering. Why did this happen to me? I didn't deserve this. I paid my dues, and now suddenly I'm the victim of this misfortune, or maybe the victim of my own mistakes. But our concept of suffering remains locked into the individual self. But as our minds and hearts expand, as we become more relinked to the depth dimension, our own personal suffering can acquire meaning and purpose as, for example, a bridge. Rather than something isolating us into our own lonely, painful world, we see our suffering as a bridge that connects us through compassion and empathy to the suffering of others. It still remains our personal suffering, but our own cross becomes lighter to bear when we see that it has this capacity to sensitize us and orientate us towards the needs and sufferings of others. So, and this happens, I think, in terms, we've been talking about relationships, in terms of, say, a good, successful, happy marriage. That the joy of that union is not only there for the private satisfaction of the couple or even of their family, but a really loving marriage and family radiates outwards with a generosity to touch the lives of those who may be alone or those who are suffering, and to share the goodness of that family with those who are in need. So it works both ways, both through suffering and through joy. We no longer feel so isolated in those experiences, but we see them radiating outwards to connect us in empathy and compassion, sympathy, and active goodness to other people. And this comes about, I think, as we learn to see or to feel this quality, this numinous quality, or of the depth dimension of our human experience. And I think along with that then comes an awakening to what we might call a spiritual dimension, or even a mystical dimension to reality, where we sense that there is at the deepest level, there is a unity. The great scientists have this intuition. They're in search of this great unified field of reality. The mystics have it in their own way and express it in their own language. So there is an intuition arising from this personal experience of connection and sympathy, that we actually belong to a great network, to a great unified reality. This is the union we were speaking about this morning, really, that unity that Jesus prays for. That is his great prayer at the Last Supper in John's Gospel, that the unity, the union that he experiences with the Father may spill over, as it were, into the lives of those he's leading, of those he's sharing himself with, of his disciples, and through them to the world. The world will know you are my disciples if you can show that you are really experiencing this unity among yourselves. So the next step in the spiritual dimension is to develop a sense of this deep and pervasive interconnectedness and unity among all things. And then I think something else happens in the spiritual path, the spirituality experience, which is we begin to see the real meaning of religion. We begin to see what the symbols, what the dogma, what the rituals, such as we're about to begin to celebrate, what they really mean. Without this spiritual dimension, the danger is that we have nothing except the externals of religion. Exactly what Jesus warned us against when he said, "Do not be like the hypocrites who stand on the street corners concerned with the external forms of religion. But when you pray, go into your inner room." So we certainly can take that as a sign of Jesus as a teacher of contemplation, pointing us towards this interiority, the inner room of the heart. Meditation can be called the prayer of the heart. But we should also remember Jesus was living and speaking within a religious culture and formed by this religious symbolism, religious faith and tradition and community, but at the same time not trapped in its external forms. So these are some elements of what we might call the spiritual dimension, what it means to be spiritual. This personal experience of the mystery, the numinous, the depth dimension, a deepening sense of the interconnectedness of all things, and indeed all wisdoms and all traditions. This is also where interreligious dialogue begins to take on a truly useful purpose, because it is actually expressing this underlying unity. Religion then becomes capable of working for human unity, the relief of suffering globally, rather than just being locked into its own denominational competitiveness. So then we might begin, after we have begun this inner journey to discover the spirituality, we then begin to see the value of religion. I think the first thing we discover is that religion can have a unifying influence. It creates a language, both maybe a conceptual language, a dogmatic language, a philosophical language, but also above all, I think, a symbolic language, because religion really begins with symbol rather than with ideas. We probably, the first religious people were dancing rather than arguing about how many angels you can fit on the point of a pin. So religion can give us a common set of symbols which become alive, of course, when they're connected to our own experience. And in these coming days, we will be playing with or entering into and celebrating some of these great symbols. Tonight, the symbol of the Eucharist. And immediately after the Gospel, we'll be celebrating the lost sacrament, the washing of the feet. The symbol that Jesus performed at the Last Supper for his disciples, that we repeat, because we repeat what we are taught in order to learn and make it our own. Religion also gives us a context, a community. Communities need certain signs or forms of expression which identify it. There's no reason for those distinctive elements of a community or a tradition to become divisions. They can be differences, and those differences can be wonderful and interesting and exciting things to celebrate rather than to be threatened by. So religious forms, symbols can do two things. They can give us a sense of being anchored in a tradition, a place where we belong, where we can find others who share this language and symbolism. At the same time, it can give us ways of meaningfully interacting with those of different beliefs or different symbolic systems. And then, especially relevant for us in these coming days, religion offers us a historical context. We are pilgrims in time. We celebrate a certain number of Easters in our lives, and this is one of them. We only get so many chances to get it, and each time is a new celebration and an opportunity to understand and relate to it more deeply. And this is a personal history, a personal experience of time. You know, at Christmas or at Easter, we remember what it was like as a child. Maybe the outward forms were different and our family memories are very strong. But we can have a sense of our own development through this religious experience. But we can look back beyond our own births and childhood, and we know that there is a continuity here, a connection going further and further back in time. And of course our focus is that historical time in which Jesus went into his passion and laid down his life. And the meaning of that ripples through time, both mystically but also historically in our own experience of tradition and our own experience of our personal lives. And in this context, I think the sense of mystery goes deeper, because the past and the present come together. This is what happens in the Mass in a very particular way. In the Middle Ages, people used to believe that you didn't grow any older while you were at Mass, because time stopped. Maybe that's why people went to Mass so much in the old days. So there was this stillness of time, this still point in time, which we could enter into through the sacred time of the rituals. There was not only the chronological time that obsesses us today, with a sense of stress and urgency, but also there is this kairos time, which is the time experience where past and future, or the eternal and the now, coincide. And it's really into this kairos, sacred time, that we should allow ourselves to be led by these rituals that we are going to repeat and relive and enjoy in these coming days. So there isn't really any ultimate opposition between spirituality and religion. Spirituality without religion runs the risk of becoming merely subjective. Our experience can just fold back on itself, and we see the whole process too much in terms of our own individual, separate, egotistical selves. And that's the danger. If we think that we're doing this outside of any community or context, then that's a real possibility. And similarly, quite obviously, religion without this spirituality rapidly becomes divisive, superficial, and competitive. So, we move now into this part of the retreat where we continue to meditate during the day and to reflect upon the meaning of meditation in our lives in relationship to the scriptures and the story of the Passion. But we also now introduce this sacramental dimension, this language, sacred language, or this language of the sacraments. At our seminar in Chicago last year, we were asked a question by Father Dan Madigan, who was leading it. He was asking, what is the sacred language of Christianity? And he said, well, the sacred language of Hinduism is what? Sanskrit. The sacred language of Islam is Arabic. The sacred language of Christianity is the sacred language of Judaism is Hebrew. What is the sacred language of Christianity? Susan, don't say anything. She knows the answer. What's that? What's the sacred language of Christianity? The vernacular. Okay. The flesh. Did you know the answer? Oh, you were there, yeah. I told you. Spoil all the fun. No, that's it. It's the body. The body. And that's something we should maybe take as a little refrain for the coming days. The sacred language of Christianity. It's not Latin, it's not Greek. We only know the words of Jesus in translation. It's almost English, but not quite. So it's the body, because the Word of God became flesh. And everything that we learn from the embodied Word of God, the flesh, the Word made flesh, Jesus, is an exact translation. There's no such thing. We were talking today about tradere, to translate is to betray. Remember? So, but in this language, the translation is perfect. It's an exact reiteration of the divine within the human. And what does that tell us about ourselves? What does it tell us about the Eucharist? What does it tell us about the cross tomorrow? And what does it tell us about the resurrection and the risen body?